The Graphic Histories Podcast.
I got bitten by a radioactive bug. I tried an experimental drug. Went up for a stroll on a gamma testing range. I found an enchanted hurricane. I made a serum that made me small. I modified the serum so it would make me tall. Radioactive isotope in my eyes. Dying alien helped me accessorize. I gained the proportion and strength of a spider. Now I'm invincible and I can fly. I lost my sight, my other senses were heightened. I'm gonna put on my pajamas and go fight crime.
Hey there and welcome to the Graphic Histories Podcast. My name is André, your podcast host. Big thanks to Uka the Mock for our theme song, Superpowers. And big thanks to you, gentle listener, for tuning in once again to another fun-filled show. Today I'm talking with a titan in the industry, one Bob Schreck. Now Bob is, I often refer to him as the Zelig, which is a dated reference for the young folk out there. Old Woody Allen movie that sort of edits a guy into a bunch of historical situations, similar to Forrest Gump for a newer reference. It's not even that new, early 90s, but yeah, a guy that's been around, been around for a long time, had a huge part in a lot of big projects, whether it be working in conventions, whether it be editing for Dark Horse or for DC, or co-creating Oni Comics. He's done a lot. He's done a huge amount for this industry, and man, what a fun conversation. As I mentioned at the outro to the last episode, talking to some people, I think every talk I've had is great. But every once in a while you really gel with someone and it becomes a really, really fun one. And this was definitely one of those. Bob's a cool guy with a lot to say, and obviously, of course he does. He has been a part of all these massive things. Batman Hush, also Superman. Worked with Kevin Smith, bringing him into comics. Working on all kinds of crazy stuff. And it was a great, great conversation. And it's coming up for you in a second. On the home front, things are going well out here in André land. I am, settling into a new role, working as interim executive director of the Marigold Cultural Center here in Truro. So it's been new for me, but been a really great time, learning a lot and having a ton of fun, sort of getting into the theater space. It's a place I've been connected to for a very long time as a part of the theater group that I'm in, because we operate out of there. But now I am in this role, while the current executive director is on leave, and in doing so, it's been a blast. It's been a lot of fun. It's been really, really cool to get even deeper into the arts, which has given me a deeper appreciation for people like Bob, who have to coordinate and get these artists, people, get them coordinated, get them organized, get them to the events, and taking an organizational role in an artistic world is an interesting one, because as we talk about in the episode, artistic people aren't the easiest to organize. So getting into a role that requires you to do that sometimes takes some discipline, some hard work, and Bob is the guy for it, and hopefully I am too, as we're leaning into this. But he has some pretty funny stories, particularly at the very end of the episode, about Paul Pope and getting him to get his work in on time, which is a very funny story. So that's coming up for you. Hopefully you're settling into the spooky Halloween season, watch some horror movies, reading some horror books, getting out there and enjoying all of that wonderful stuff. So do that, and enjoy the season, because that's what it's for. That's what we're here for, enjoying stuff, living our life, and try not to get bogged down in the heaviness, to quote Rodney Dangerfield. At the time of this episode airing, I believe we were near the ending of Mark Maron's podcast, which obviously was a huge influence on this one. I don't think anyone who listens to both can tell that the format of the show is very much ripped directly from Mr. Maron's show. And I know he often makes jokes about people, copying him, ripping him off, doing what he does. And I'm unabashedly one of them. But trying to stay in the space of the artistic, the comic, the nerdy realm. But hey, I'm open to anything. Somebody's, an artist, a musician. I've had musicians on the show before, but they were related to the nerd field. But hey, who knows? I'm open. I'm open to it. Bring it in. But yeah, I'm sad to see it go. I was a massive fan of that show, still am, and listened to it. Never missed an episode for the last, 15 years. No, probably last 10 years. I'm listening to it, haven't missed an episode, and it's going to be missed greatly. So now I'm in the hunt for a new podcast. So if you are and you found this one, welcome. And we can lean on each other to get through our loss of Mr. Marin's show. But hopefully we can enjoy him and all the other wonderful things he's doing: movies, film, TV, comedy. He's out there, so we still get his voice. But I want to miss that show. It was very, very good interviews and really got to the humanity of the people he talked to. And that's something I strive for every day on this show, and I think I did it today. So why don't you tune in and judge for yourself? Here it is, my conversation with the I don't know how to describe the Titanic, the amazing, stupendous, deeply deeply ingrained in comic history, Bob Schreck.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
I can. How are you?
Hoorah! I'm doing okay. How are you?
Oh, can't complain.
Nice to meet you, Andre.
Yeah, you as well. Thank you so much for being on the show. Do you prefer Bob or Robert?
Bob is fine.
All right. I'm a little less official too, so I'll go by Bob. Well, welcome. It's really, really nice to have you on. Where are you calling in from?
Uh, Milwaukee, Oregon, which is the first little town right outside of Portland.
Oh, really?
So yeah. I moved here the first time in '89, and we arrived. Diana Schutz and I arrived here thanks to Mike Richardson.
Mhm.
And it was in March, and it was, of course, gray and raining. But I was having so much fun in Southern California. I couldn't wait to get away from there. And I love this place. It's great. Let's get out of. I just hated Southern California, but yeah, so, fell in love with it and stayed here for quite a long time, and moved away for quite a while, and then I'm back. I came back 13 or 14 years ago, something like that.
Wow. Very cool. And New York was where you were initially born, is that right?
Right. I grew up on Long Island.
Oh, okay.
The joke was that I was born in Glen Cove, which was quite the pricey, well-to-do area.
Uh-huh.
And then I was shunted off to live in Levittown, which was not quite. But it was great. It was, I was a crazy kid, and it was a great, almost Dennis the Menace kind of growing up experience. So it was a great time, the late 50s and the early 60s. So it was a really good childhood.
Good era to grow up in, a good spot.
Yeah, and like so many of my generation, you fell in love with Zachary the Cool Ghoul and Ray Harryhausen, and we all kind of consumed all this crazy stuff that was being produced for us. So, yeah, it was a good run.
What's the cool ghoul? That's outside of my purview. Was that like the Vampira kind of thing where they were like the programming like horror shows and stuff? Okay.
He was like one of the original horror hosts.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I think he started in Pennsylvania, and then he moved up he started getting carried in New York, and he had this great makeup. He looked like a cross between a zombie and a vampire, and his wife was the sound. He had a hospital basket, and his wife was just this weird sound, and he would create zombies, and yeah, he was great. He was really funny. It was a very, very, very deep voice.
I feel like there's a good documentary to be made about these people. There's probably one out there already, but I'm familiar with the obvious ones and a few of the more obscure ones because every region had their own one, right? Like
yeah, sure. Chicago, I think, has that. I hate it too. What's his name?
Svengoolie was the other one.
Svengoolie.
Yeah, right.
I mean, the point. Zachary at least made good jokes. He was funny.
Yeah.
This stuff is just like, oh, please. I'd rather. Yeah, never mind.
Yeah, we had I'm in Canada in the Nova Scotia, but we kind of there's like the Hilarious House of Frightenstein, but it wasn't really like a program show where they would show you old horror movies. It was more like a kind of a comedic sort of thing.
Gotcha.
And with like SCTV would make fun of it a lot with their Count Floyd and all that sort of stuff. But
There's a lot of fun to be had.
yeah, for sure. Well, like getting into that as a kid, were you also into comics? Was comics like something you always had growing up?
Um, I kind of read a few when I was quite young, but I was really more into movies and uh, science fiction and fantasy. And my brother, I owe a lot to my brother because he, through the John Christopher trilogy, The City of Gold and Lead, and all these, it was a great retelling, basically, of the War of the Worlds, only by the from the eyes of three teenage boys. And so I gobbled. I wasn't much of a reader until then. I think I read all three of those in a day.
Hmm.
And then I became a very big, voracious reader of just about anything. But in the beginning, it was all horror and science fiction.
Oh,
We belonged to the science fiction Doubleday Science Fiction Book Club, and they put out a pamphlet every month, and there'd be a new Frank Frazetta painting. I mean, it was, and I was in New York, so I was right there. I got to meet Bernie Wrightson when he was
oh wow.
like 20, 21, or some ridiculous number. So I got to go to the Phil Suling shows, and then eventually I started working at creation conventions a few years later. So
Yeah, how did that come about? Is it just because you were around and you rubbed elbows with the right person, or?
totally by accident. I was starting a band, and I needed a keyboard player. And me and my bass player together, my friend Bob Freund, we started the band, and we put an ad out in the local little rag, and in walked this guy named Adam. Now, we had been, my friend Larry and I and Bob, we had gone to creation conventions as fans.
Hmm.
And whenever you went there, you would see these people in their 50s, this husband and wife, and you figure, well, they're running the show. They signed the paperwork, but their son, Adam Malin, was the co-founder for Creation, along with Gary Berman. And Berman's parents, you never really saw there. It was always Adam's parents.
Hmm.
But we didn't know anything. So we went to the show, actually went to a beautiful Frazetta exhibit that was there. And I got to meet Jack Kirby for the first
Oh
time.
wow, wow.
And so it was an incredible time and all these different shows. And a few years later, at this point, I'm about 19 going on 20, we start a band. And my house burnt down, first of all, when I turned 18. And we were in it. It was pretty horrible, but we all made it out except for my brother's dog,
Oh,
who alerted everybody to it, of course, and then went back in the house. But so I said, well, gee, I'm working at a print shop and I hate it. And I knew I shouldn't take my dad's advice, which was, get a steady job, work for the government. He wanted me to become a cop, and I was like, which is what he did. I was like, I'd rather die. So I said, I love music. I've been singing in my room, practicing for the last 5 years. So why don't I start a band? So we started the band, took out the ad, and walks this guy, and his name happens to be Adam. And my best buddy, Larry Ruggiero, was there, and he just went, Adam, what's your last name? And Adam said Malin. And the two of us, Larry and I, the jaws dropped and went, you're Adam Malin? I thought you were 55 years old. And he had a great keyboard system, and we brought him onto the band. And then as the band progressed, and we were doing really good. We were playing the tri-state area. We were being booked by the biggest agent in the tri-state area. And then disco happened. And we were a prog rock band that did Rocky Horror as the third set.
oh, awesome. That's fantastic.
Yeah, we had a great time, and we were the first time we saw the movie. Bob and I were like, "Oh my God, they're talking to us! This is us!" And his girlfriend became Janet, and we got a Brad in. I was a very, very, very fat riffraff, but appropriately rotund as Meatloaf, so I played
Mhm.
both because I could sing both parts. But anyway, next thing I know, I'm in a band with Adam, and then the band starts to fade away, and Adam says, "Well, you've been great. I've helped them work a few shows. They brought me on as a regular employee." So that was a great, like, 4 year run, a 3 to 4 year run. We had a great time.
Wow. That's amazing. So I've talked to some people about I think it was oh God, I'm blanking on the name right now, but there's another gentleman from Ron who had like was early on doing comic cons and stuff like that around the time period when they were starting to take off, and some of the stories he told me were amazing. It was like one was he was like paying, was it Ted Nugent was like was there performing, and he said he had to pay him cash, and he was naked in his locker room when he came over to pay him, and just like all these hilarious stories about sort of
Wow.
the grunge punk rock sort of era of I think it was Ron Randall, the punk
Oh
rock
yeah.
era, yeah, punk rock era of early Comic Cons, and how that world seems so wild compared to what it's become.
Yeah, Ron lives right here in Portland as well. He's a great guy.
Yeah, yeah, no, he's a great dude, and great to chat with him as well. So, I just skimming through, some history of you online. I equate you to the Zelig of like comics. It seems like you've been involved in a lot of interesting things throughout the years.
Uh,
Which is it's wild to me. It's like but making the connections to all of them is kind of the interesting part to me. So going from the Comic Cons to what was the first job off that? Was that Comico?
no. Um, when you're doing all these shows, you get to
Hmm.
meet everybody from the industry.
Of course, yeah.
And I'm a New Yorker, so I meet everybody from Marvel, particularly Carol Kalish, uh, who was helped this industry by leaps and bounds. She was so smart and so good, and I mean, they didn't even. Most stores didn't have cash registers, and she introduced things like Planet Earth to comic. So she was fantastic, and I got to know her. But I was lucky I got to know everybody. And at creation, I booked everybody's flights.
Hmm.
So I knew where they like to sit. I knew, you know, how much time they needed, and I knew all these, like Archie Goodwin and all these people who I spent hours with these as guests. We would go to dinner, get real relationships with these people. And Carol, well, actually, it was Pam Rutt, I think was her name. She was in charge of that whole booking flights, and a lady named Lee Sapp quit just as the summer shows were starting up. And Carol knew me, and she knew that I could fit the job
Hmm.
perfectly. So she hired me, but she didn't tell Pam Rutt. And I go walking in there with a leather vest, a badger cap, and, and leather spikes. And Pam Rutt walks in and goes, "Who are you?" And I'm sitting at a desk because Carol put me there. And she said, "Who are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm Bob Schreck. I'm here to take over for Lee Sapp. And I know you guys are." And she just rolled her eyes and went, "Carol!" So I started it at Marvel uh, for about a year and a half tops. And Peter David was, rest his soul, he was in marketing then. He was not quite, I don't think he had started writing yet.
Oh, I didn't know he started marketing. Interesting.
Yeah, yeah, he
Yeah.
was in the marketing. So yeah, I started there, and it flops back to creation because while I'm running shows with Gary and Adam, we're doing them all over the country. It started smaller, but once I got there, we were going everywhere every weekend. We were going some city, sometimes two. And Philadelphia was my favorite city
Hmm.
after New York. Like, this is such a great town. Well, who was attending those conventions? The Kamiko guys before they were Kamiko.
Hmm.
So I get to meet Jerry Giovinco, who was one of the founders, and Phil Lasorda. And I was at Marvel for a while, and they had known me for a long time. Actually, the sidebar humorous story was we would give Matt Wagner and the burgeoning Kamiko guys a free table or two at our shows, only if Jerry Giovinco was suited up in his giant Ben Grimm costume that he had created. And we made him walk the line and entertain the fans while they were waiting to get in with his plastic cigar. Okay, kids, welcome to the Yancey Street. And then we'd give them a table or two. So that eventually, once I left, well, I was unceremoniously let go by Jim Shooter at Marvel. And that's a whole nother story. But
well, I got time if you want to tell it. Sounds interesting.
Okay, well, but so eventually the guys at Kamiko they had already done their black and whites and were beaten up big time for it because aside from Grendel, they weren't that good. And there was a distributor at the time called Glenwood Distribution that would have their meeting in Vegas, and they literally they felt like the first time they went to a distributor show, it's like they pelted us with rocks and garbage. They just don't make any more comics. You guys suck.
Jesus.
So, yeah,
I thought the era of the internet only brought about that sort of vitriol towards people making comics. Like, it's nice to know that at least back in the day when people could yell to your face, they still did at least.
Oh yeah, no, they were a rough crowd. So, so as a result of all of that craziness, they needed more marketing, and they wanted me to come in and be the administrative director, whatever that meant. And I was already dating Diana Schutz, who had just moved to New York to be my girlfriend in New York, well, on Long Island. Mm-hmm. And then the next thing I know, I'm getting a job at Kamiko down in the Philly area. And I kept saying, as I've said my whole time, you don't want me, you want her. She's really good. I'm okay. She's great. And eventually they discovered I was right, and she was hired as well. So that was the Kamiko stint, and that lasted 4 or 5 years, I think. And when that folded, it was kind of like, oh my goodness. Well, actually, I'm trying to remember. When that folded, Dave Stevens and I had known Dave Stevens for 1,000 years because of the con running. And all the friends in my group, Bob Chapman, John Kukisakis, they're like, I went to graffiti for a short stay with Bob Chapman at Graffiti Designs in California, Anaheim, which, like I said, I hated every moment of. Bob's a great guy, but we weren't meshing. It wasn't going to work. So I was answering the phones, and Dave Stevens and John and others were like, have you talked to Schreck lately? He sounds like he's going to kill himself. So Dave and Kookie said, why don't we call Mike Richardson at Dark Horse and get them the hell out of. So that was what happened. Boom, Mike Richardson said, hey, because again, we had a good run at Kamiko. So it was like, okay, you guys know what you're doing. And even then, they hired me first. And I'm sitting there going, no, the girl. And eventually they went, oh, the girl. I was like, yes. And because she got, she was Mussolini. At Kamiko, they were a nightmare getting anything out on time. She eventually had 3 different Robotech titles coming out, one title each 2 weeks. I think that's how it worked. It was a rolling thunder of Robotech. And it's like, oh my God, you don't want to get in this woman's way,
Well, yeah, because that company had like Johnny Quest and Robotech and like some other things that were kind of like big. And I mean, Grundle was starting there, so which became obviously a big thing on the indies and beyond. But
yeah, we were lucky. I mean, and the funny thing is, like, everybody's going, we should do Johnny Quest. And Phil and Jerry and I are like, yeah, that's great. And it took the girl to say, well, if you're going to do it, you should call this guy Doug Wildey. And we're like, who? She's like, Doug Wildey, he just created the show. And then boom, that's when we went, oh, well, that's a great idea, Diana. And of course, we contacted him and worked with him. We were this close to get an Alex Toth cover, this close.
Aw.
Yeah, it was just one of those nights, didn't work out.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, the Kimiko was a great run. And then, of course, we wound up, after my stint at Graffiti, we wound up at Dark Horse. And that was another really great run, great time.
Well, can you tell me why Jim Shooter fired you? I'm curious. You piqued my interest.
Oh, yes. Well, Carol was a part of it.
Okay.
Because all of these corporations, there's little games that they have to play and fiefdoms, and they want to get back at each other and da. So Carol hired me, but one of the main reasons she hired me was to basically give them the algorithm on how creation cons worked. And so it's like, okay, you get room nights. If you get this many guests in the hotel, they give you a discount here. And this is what you have to do in order to secure the contract. Da, da, da. So and this was ramping up to the 25th anniversary of Marvel.
So Marvel had designs and doing their own conventions, and they were wanting the.
Well, they were thinking about, hey, why don't we do conventions? So, so Carol immediately buried my proposal, which was doing a whole year of conventions just on Marvel. She buried it on purpose so that I would get booted out of there, because she knew if I stayed at Marvel, I'd wind up miserable. So I found out late that it had been buried. So I wrote a letter and Diana helped me write the letter, like, please, Mr. Shooter, please let me stay on. So I had a meeting with Jim about it, and he kind of just listened and listened, and he said, well, listen, Bob, I'll tell you one thing. If Marvel's going to do a comic book convention, we're going to do one that makes San Diego look like garbage. I was like, well, that's very charitable. The show that's been giving you the red carpet for how many years, and you just want to go and poo all over them? It's like, well, that's not. So I lost the fight, and I did get booted out. And again, Carol was like, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. And then the next thing I knew, I was off to Kimiko.
Yeah, well, and then on to Dark Horse.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's like when the Zelig line comes back again, because looking at the folks you worked with and helped to propel the careers of, like Mike Allred, of course, who was how did that connection? Did he just show up one day with his stuff, or what was
he did.
Wow.
He had a thing. He sent us a thing called Cold Air, which was his very first comic that he was living, I think, at the time in Germany, in the armed forces somehow. I can't remember.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And we got the pitch and looked at it and went, oh, well, we know how this ends. It was too obvious. He like you read 32 pages of a pitch, and then you get to the end and go, yeah, it kind of felt like years later I read The Stand and went, well, yeah, it's that guy. So we turned it down. The art was nice, but we turned it down. And then he went on to start over at Tundra. And once I got to Dark Horse, I was leaving the administrative marketing world to become an editor at Dark Horse. But I wrote because I was so invested, and I got Mike to come from Tundra to Dark Horse. I wrote his entire marketing plan down to the last penny, so that the new person who was coming in, who was totally not qualified for the job, couldn't mess it up.
Mm-hmm.
And Richardson was great. He was like, nope, this is the plan. This is what I'm going to tell her to do. And it worked. I mean, Madman took off. It was already a nice shiny object to begin with, but it blew up when Dark Horse got a hold of it. We marketed the hell out of it, you know.
Yeah. Well, it seems to me like obviously you have some like you mentioned the prog rock and sort of the punk rock sensibilities, and that book always felt that way to me, like sort of I wouldn't call it like a rallying cry against the norm, but it certainly seemed that way, like as a casual fan learning about it as a kid. Well, I was a big fan, but seeing that style and that story and that sort of non-conventional way he went about things, it seemed like a very much an outlier when it's all the other stuff that was coming out at the time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, as you well know, you've seen his Bowie book. He's totally. He's so talented. It's annoying. He was making life. What do you call them? Busts.
Yeah.
He could just create a bust like the way Randy Bowen can create a character. And it's like, that's David Bowie. That's David Bowie's face. How do you do that? Just everything he touches, the guy knew his way around it. And if he didn't, he learned it.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
So, yeah, great guy. Him and the wife and the kids are all friends for all these years.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be remiss not to ask what it's like to work with Frank Miller. I mean, obviously, you had a pretty significant connection with him throughout the years on many of his books while he was over there as well.
Yeah, the fun story for me to tell is I had already met Frank through creation.
Mm-hmm.
So we had seen each other, and he knew that I worked at Marvel. But once I went to Marvel, but at creation cons, one time Gary and Adam said, "Bob, we're going to let you book all the celebrities for the show in New York at the Sheridan that wound up being a block around the corner from where I was working at DC 15 years later, or however many years later." So they said, "You book it." So I booked Ray Harryhausen.
Awesome. Man,
Yeah,
I'll have a story about him later, but again.
dream true, right?
Yeah.
And that happened because my best buddy Larry went and saw a Clash of the Titans presentation at the Museum of Modern Art, I think, or yeah, and got stationery with Ray Harryhausen's handwritten address on it. He had that for several years, and then suddenly I'm going to be able to book the show. Larry, give me that piece of paper. Send off a letter, get a response. Ray says, "I'd love to be there." So, and I also got Harlan Ellison,
Oh.
and we had already burned through, and I had known Harlan previously, but we had already burned through all the Star Trek guests that we can get. So, and not to be mean or anything, but BB Besh, who played Kirk's wife in the second Star Trek movie. She was our Star Trek guest, and she wasn't quite the draw that we had hoped for. But the show,
yeah, I get that.
yeah, she wasn't Scotty. Yeah. She was,
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm part of this is we wanted to get into a relationship with Starlog because they had some of the great guests that we couldn't get. Well, I came up with an idea to Gary and Adam and said, "Well, why don't we give Starlog a little peck on the cheek? Why don't we call up the head of Starlog, whose name I'm not remembering right now, Kerry O'Quinn, and let him introduce Ray to the New York fandom." And that worked, because the next thing I know, I could show you a picture of Starlog, me, Gary and Adam, and Kerry O'Quinn signing the contract that brought us all together. Awesome. But anyway, I'm sitting in the back of the room, and I'm mad that I didn't save this moment for myself. And I'm just back there going, "Well, this is great," even though I didn't get to introduce him. It's just so cool. And I looked to my left, and there's Frank Miller, who wasn't a guest at the show. And I was like perplexed. It's like, why? Doesn't he have something better to do on a Saturday afternoon? and I turned to him and I go, "Hi, Frank." He goes, "Yeah, Bob Schreck." He goes, "I know who you are." Like, okay. I said, "Oh, what are you doing here? And he just looked. He just went. Uh, what do you think? It's Ray Harryhausen. He didn't even say it. He just went, I'm here because of him, by pointing his finger. It's like, oh, I'll shut up now. And it was a great time. Ray showed his old Puppetoon stuff for George Powell, and he brought in some original art from Willis O'Brien. It was incredible. And I got to hold Gwanji, I was about to leave his room. I just got him into his room, and I was going to leave. He goes, Bob, don't you want to see Gwanji? And I was like, yes, I do. I never right back. So I had pictures of, like, he had this old 1940s suitcase, and in there was all of his skeleton and Medusa. I mean, just all sorts of good stuff.
Oh my God, anyway, that's amazing.
Yeah, that was a trip, So that was what kind of got me to the point where I was like, okay, I'm done. And then, like I said, the creation days started to wane, and it was a great time.
Major connection to Frank. Wow. Says. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, it says that you were instrumental in convincing him to have a film version of Sin City go forward. Is there truth to that?
Oh, he had that in his mind all along. I mean, we all, at the time, it was like, man, wouldn't this be fantastic and wonderful? If I recall correctly, Mike Allred was very close with, what's his name, from the director of Sin City.
Robert Rodriguez?
Robert Rodriguez.
Yeah.
Those two, Rodriguez was a comics nerd, obviously.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And the two of them were like friends on fire. Like, this guy is great. And Allred kept calling Frank, saying, call this guy is ready to do. Rodriguez is totally, he doesn't do anything. And I called, and now Mike gives up and calls me and says, haunt Frank, get him to do this. But I didn't know, Frank would ignore me, and he ignored me. And I was his editor at the time, I believe. And he needed an answer to a question. So I didn't return his call. And he called again, and I didn't return his call. And then he called again, and I went, okay, I'll pick up Frank. It's like, what? I said, Frank, the answer to your question is whatever it was. And I said, beyond that, when you call this guy Rodriguez, you're making me look like an idiot. And he's like, oh, God, all right. I think he actually stiffed Rodriguez with a few phone calls. And finally. Well, and that's the smart play. You don't want to be like, oh,
Yeah, play cool.
Yeah, you don't want to be too willing. And then boom, the next thing I know, that's the other thing. So without my knowing, I hadn't talked to Frank in like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And I call, and he's not there. He's in Texas shooting that opening scene from the movie where he kills the lady contracts him to kill her on the balcony, and it's like I'm welcome. You're welcome. What the hell? Just went off and made a movie, and it came out. Obviously, it came out fantastic. It was beautiful. Rodriguez did a wonderful job, and Frank did a great job. They really maintained the integrity of the original.
Yeah, that first film is, fantastic. And I remember, like, just even stylistically, I've never seen any other comic quite capture the feel of the source comic like it. You know what I mean? Like, nothing else has.
Yeah.
As far as the look as well, like just the visual, not even just the tone. I mean, lots of comic movies have done that, but just the stylish way they did that was just fantastic.
It was all there. I mean, even gosh, I'm having so many troubles with names.
No, it's
even with with Tarantino. I mean, he directed a couple of scenes in that because they were using that whole green screen thing that had never really been done like that before. So, yeah, no, it was a revolutionary piece of work.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I definitely, a beginning part to like all of the wild adaptations of comic books we're getting now. Like it used to just be superhero stuff, and now anything and everything that's been on a printed page is getting an adaptation of some kind, either an animated series or a live action thing. And I feel like a
Yeah,
lot of those sort of open the floodgates.
I would prefer they start doing widening even more because right now it's like uh, another origin story. And it's
Yeah, yeah.
the same story over and over again. We got to find this thing somewhere out in the universe and bring it back and save the world. It's like, okay, I get it. I get it. Can we move on,
Yeah.
please, to something little? But you're right. There's way more variety now than there was back in the day.
Well, even like often ones that I often talk about adaptations of graphic novels that most people don't realize were, there's ones like History of Violence or Road to Perdition or those sort of ones. But
Right.
one that the average person probably doesn't realize, and connecting this to the next level of your career, is Scott Pilgrim. That was an Oni Press release, which was something that you were instrumental in founding, right?
Found him, Oni Press, yes.
Mhm.
Joe Nosmak and I had known Joe since he was like 15 or 16. Again, working the cons at Kimiko and getting to meet him. He says he swears this isn't true, but my memory is he walked up to me at a show and said, "Are you Matt Wagner?" And I went, "No, that's Matt Wagner." And he went, but Joe was a super smart kid from Texas, and we would see each other after at certain shows, and eventually we became pals. And a lot of folks from Texas wound up moving here because we became pals. So
Mm.
Joe moved up, his brother moved up, and as Dark Horse started to wear me thin, uh, and I did. I quit Dark Horse, and but we sat there and said, "Well, what are you going to do now, Schreck?" And I was like, "I don't know, Joe. What do you want to do?" He's like, "Let's start our own company." And it was the worst time to do it because sales were down, sales
Mm.
were low. But the idea was, well, the only way to go now is up. So Oni got started. The reason why we called it Oni was I had several friends in spots all over the south of America, and one of them was Shannon Stewart, who, when I went to Georgia, he picked me up at the airport, and what's hanging from his rear view mirror? A little plastic Oni. Go to Texas, Houston, hang out with Joe and his brother. There's a little Oni hanging. It was like the thing back then. That age group was like, oh man. So I'm like, so let's just call us Oni Press. He's like, well, nobody knows what that means. I said, nobody knows what anything means. Who cares? It's cool. We got Dave Gibbons to design our logo, which incorporated some of the Inuit influence from
Mhm.
where we were, up in the Northwest here. So, but Scott Pilgrim was Joe. I believe Joe Nosmak was the one who signed that one. And I was either just leaving or had already left. And that puppy just took right off, I
Mm.
mean, and for me, I liked the movie better than the comic.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Comic was too jumpy and weird, and but
I was quite a fan
you
of the
know,
Netflix show too that just came out. Actually, I thought that was quite good. They have an animated Netflix show that's sort of
oh, I haven't
ta-
seen it.
it takes the story, like it starts off the same as like you think it's just another adaptation, but then
Right.
it goes after the end of the first episode, it goes hard a different way.
Ah,
And
cool.
it's actually a really neat way to approach it. It's almost like a splintered timeline where you see what would have happened if it went a different way. And
Great.
yeah, it's very cool. It was a neat idea. But I mean, obviously, since the creator of it is a Canadian, I believe he lived in Halifax for a while, which is close to where I live in Nova Scotia.
Right, right.
I think it's always, and I growing up, that was right around when I was probably, 18, 19 when it was coming out. So it was like such a cool, unique, different comic that was very
Perfect.
anime, but also not, so. But like
Yeah.
working with, like, because you worked with Kevin Smith there as well, right? And
Who?
Kevin Smith
Oh, yeah.
from Oni, yeah, because I was doing the
Yep.
Clerks comics there.
Yep. That's a funny story. When I was at Dark Horse, actually, Joe Nosmack again. This is why you have smart friends and that take good care of you. Joe's like, hey, you should check out this guy that does Clerks. It's really funny. It's really good. I was dressing the way Kevin dressed back then.
Mm.
I had the long coat,
Yeah.
old baseball cap backwards. It was sad. And I watched the movie and went, oh, that's weird. And and I think Mallrats was already out. Yeah, Mallrats was already out. And I just decided, well, gee, this guy's really funny and he makes these movies. I went into Mike Richardson and I said, I think we should get Kevin Smith to do some of his stories in Dark Horse Presents. And Mike Richardson, I will never forget this to this day, said, Kevin Smith promotes drug abuse. I have 3 daughters. Dark Horse is not going to publish any of that garbage for my, I got to protect the kids. And I was like, well, Mike, I understand what you're saying, but
Mm.
you're wrong about one thing. Kevin doesn't promote drug abuse.
Mm.
Life promotes drug abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin just talks about it,
Mm-hmm.
but life is hard enough. So he's like, "Oh, it's not funny. Get out of here." So I failed. I couldn't get it. And then when Joe and I decided to start Oni, Joe looked at me and said, "Call Kevin now." I said, "You're right." Got on the phone. The next day, I was arriving in, I guess it was the Philadelphia airport or somewhere around there. That might have been Newark. And Monica, who was dating Mr. Gosh, I'm going to blank on his name, Scott Morris, I think is his name. She picks me up, and I was once again, because of my weird bisexuality, you're in and out of the closet through life, and
Mm-hmm.
so and didn't know this, but Kevin's brother was gay. So boom, I'm in Red Bank and staying in Kevin's place. And the next thing we knew, we had a deal ready to go for the Clerks comic book. So
Yeah.
again, just I say it all the time in a Pee Wee Herman voice. I'm the luckiest boy in the world. Just one thing after another, either falls in my lap or the same
Yeah.
thing with Paul Pope. I'm at San Diego, and this is a joke. I'm not being mean to Joe Nosmack, but I'm at San Diego, and I think Paul's second book had just come out. And Joe walks up to me and goes, "Hey man, you should check out this guy Paul Pope." I said, "Oh, okay, thanks." My other buddy Shannon Stewart from Atlanta area, he went and bought me the book and handed it to me. I read it that night, and that was it. I was like, this guy is phenomenal.
Mm.
And just because people went, hey, look over here. And I happened to have been in a position where I could say, and I gave him his first real published work. I gave him his first real paycheck through Dark Horse with the One Trick Ripoff.
Well, you can say that it's luck, but I really feel like there's a level of, I think being connected to so many folks is part. It's just a testament to your personality, and also that you're open to recognize when these opportunities come. There's a lot of people that probably would have lots of opportunities in life if they, were empathetic enough or expressive enough or, charismatic enough to be out there and meet these sort of peoples, but also recognize when those opportunities are present. And a lot of people don't.
Well, thank you very much. It's very sweet. But yeah, I mean, want to actually put a fine point on that. One of my other favorite moments, as you recall, I mentioned Carol Kalish.
Yeah.
I saw a small little photograph in some American magazine, I forget, Newsweek or whatever, and it was this little weird computer-generated head. I was like, what the heck is this? So I went and read about it. And looked, it's just a little blurb. And then I kind of researched it because it looked so cool. And I was like, oh my God, the next thing I know, I'm on the phone with the guy who created the Max Headroom show.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know there was a TV, a movie already done. I just, whatever. This guy, this is amazing. It's so funny. So he was a marketing guy, and he sold the idea, the concept, over to this company, Hamilton Projects. But he, like I did with Madman, he wrote in his contract, if there's going to be a comic book, it has to be. It's like, oh, it's ours. He put it in our hands. So this was at Kamiko. So I go to a trade show in San Diego, and we secured the license. And I got a big poster, and I was putting it on our booth. And as I was doing that, Carol Kalish walks by and sees it and goes, you could see her face go, like, wow, that's a great idea. And then she stops and just looks at me like, you bastard. I already got it, Carol. I wouldn't put it up, but I didn't already have it,
That's awesome.
The horrible part of it is that Mike Barron wrote it, and it was friggin' hilarious. And the Panda Brothers penciled all of it. And we had Ray Zone set up to make it 3D.
Mm-hmm.
And Hamilton Projects brought in Coca-Cola, and Coca-Cola turned Max Headroom into a guy who said titties and PP.
No, you can curse on this. It's all good. Not that that's cursing, but
shit and fucking.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, that's not the character. He was sarcastic, crazy, and the next thing we knew, after spending several thousands of dollars that we never got back, they just killed it. And they said, no, you can't publish it. Like, oh, this was so good. And it never happened.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of, I was going to ask if Pope is what led you towards working in the DC realm, because your work done like his Batman 100 series, right? And also Hush and a few other things.
Mm-hmm.
Was that the connective tissue, or is that just something DC like courted you or something to that effect?
Well, the funny thing is, while I was at Dark Horse, Dick Giordano, are you still there?
Yep.
Good. For some reason, I'm not seeing you.
Oh, you froze for a sec, but you're good now on my end.
Okay, well, I can't see you at all. So, okay, so where was I?
Dick Giordano. Yeah.
Right, Dick Giordano and Pat Bastian, who was his assistant. Sweethearts, fantastic people. They tried to hire me at DC 3 times, to the point where the third time Dick is on the phone. He goes, Bob, how about we book you a flight out to New York? We wine and dine you. We have a lovely weekend of just hanging out. He says, why don't we do all this? And it's going to be the third time is a charm. And you're going to wind up going back to Dark Horse and getting a raise and staying there. And we're going to be out again. So I said, okay. So eventually Dick retires, and And Dick was great. He was a big supporter of Phil Lasorda and the Kimiko guys. They, we eventually wound up. Kimiko was in DC's solicitations. That's how close we got.
Well,
So I didn't do it, and then I got a phone call when I was at Oni, and we were running Oni out of my house. And Jamie Rich, who had gotten hired at Dark Horse and then brought him on to Oni, he's there with me, and the phone rings, and it's DC Comics, and it's Denny O'Neil leaving a message on my phone. I'm like, oh boy. So the funny part of that story is Denny was going around DC saying, I want to hire Diana Schutz. Now, Diana had been hired at Marvel, but she only made it 4 days. The 5th day, she was going to have an indoctrination by Shooter, and she just couldn't go in.
really?
Plus, it was the commute. You're on the island, and getting her hair. I mean, she had to be up at like 4 a.m. in order to make it into work. So she just left because she was always the hippie girl. I mean, I wasn't quite a hippie. She was the real hippie girl. So everybody at DC is going to Denny O'Neil. You don't want Diana. Diana doesn't want to work here. You want Bob Schreck. You don't want Diana. You want Bob Schreck. So he calls Diana first, and Diana says, "You don't want me. You want Bob Schreck."
I like that's gone back full circle when you used to do the same for her. Like, you don't want me, you want her. Yeah.
So he begrudgingly hired me because everybody else, including Mike Carlin, and I mean, I'd known Paul Levitz for 1,000 years. And many other people from DC and marketing, because we were so close. We used to, when Kimiko, we would always run parties at San Diego on Sunday night in hotel rooms, along with Bob Chapman eventually. But in the beginning, it was just Kimiko and DC. And we'd have these great bashes at the end of the con, and everybody who was anybody would come to these things, So, then the next thing you know, they're on the phone. And they made me an offer I can't refuse. I actually went out there and they offered me such a low salary. And I'm sitting there at dinner with Paul and Mike and Benny, and it's like, you want what? I'm practically making that in Dark Horse. You're out of your mind. So they ponied up some real money, and I said, okay, I can move. Because I knew New York. You can't live there on scraps. You got to make some healthy dough.
Yeah, well, I mean, in the work you did there, like just looking at the list of some of the stuff that you brought in and the people you brought in, I'm a huge Grant Morrison fan, and also Superman to me is the best Superman comic ever made. So the fact that you made that happen, and it was such an influence on the new movie, which I loved, like just everything about it. I just love that series. It's the penultimate version, or that's not the right word, the ultimate version of Superman, that my perfect version of Lex Luthor. It's got everything that I want from Superman. So I just wanted to thank you for making that possible. It's one of my favorites.
I had very little to do with it, aside from being its editor. That DC already had established that book was going to happen. There were many all-star books.
Yes, I remember the Batman one as well. And did they ever have a Wonder Woman one? I don't remember.
Well,
they did.
That was supposed to be by Adam Hughes.
Oh, that would have been. I feel like I remember reading that somewhere, maybe like in like somewhere online.
Yeah. Well, I knew back then it would not probably ever happen, because Adam's he's a sweet guy, but he makes too much money doing commissions, and why spend hours doing panels when you can pull teeth out of, like a dentist, and there's another grand, there's another grand.
Yeah.
Again, he's the sweetest guy in the world, and he's super talented. We gave him one of his early works with the Maze Agency at Kimiko. So we had known Adam Hughes. So, but yeah, where was I? I'm lost.
All-Star Superman, working with Grant, editing Grants.
Yeah. Yeah, so DiDio, who I didn't exactly have the greatest time working with, he handed me All Star Superman.
Hmm.
And honestly, I mean, it was, the script comes in and it's absolutely amazing. Pencils come in and they're absolutely amazing. The hardest job I had was because Frank Quitely had, I guess, a bit of a run in with the folks at up in the our not the marketing but the administrative department and the billing department, and he made an enemy there.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't get him paid.
Oh my God, really?
Couldn't get him paid. I have to Xerox invoice after another. Go down to the point where it got ugly. My assistant walked in. He could see the invoice waiting on the guy's desk, holding, and then Michael Wright is holding the invoice, copy of the invoice, and he goes, "It's right here. What are you talking about?" And the guy goes, "Fuck you! Get out of my office." He didn't get fired.
Jesus.
Should have gotten fired. He didn't get fired.
Wow.
Um, it was that difficult. But I mean, what? I mean, Grant. I say this about Batman and Frank, and the same thing with Grant Morrison and Superman. What am I going to tell them
Hmm.
that they don't already
Yeah.
know? And that I mean, that's my job, is to make sure that they're happy, they're being fed by nice checks that keep their families thriving,
Hmm.
and that they don't make a fool of themselves. That's it. They know what they're doing. Now, that's not how I approached any other creator that was coming up into the ranks,
Hmm.
because they were not Frank Miller. They were
Hmm.
somebody that needed to have more hands-on and more assistance and help. And hey, what do you think about doing this with the character? Da, da, da. Like Green Lantern, we did several things with Green Lantern that were co-founded by myself and Judd Winnick and some others. So anyway, yeah, I mean, that book was stunning to watch. Every page
Yeah.
floated in, and we couldn't believe it. We couldn't believe how amazing a job that Grant was doing. So yeah, he's what can you say? He's Grant Morrison.
Well, yeah, 100%. Well, I mean, like Day Tripper is a beautiful book, and Sweet Tooth is one of my personal favorites.
Thank, thank.
I got the pleasure to meet Jeff Lemire just briefly. He was doing a
Oh yeah,
signing at a comic cut shop in Halifax. I managed to get in to get some stuff signed from him. So it
fellow
was
Canadian.
yes, that's right. I mean, but I don't want to keep you all day. I just wanted to ask you about a few other things. What was working with? Did you work like I noticed you worked on toe tags, and that was a Romero book. But did you work with Romero at all on that, or?
Yes.
Oh wow, man! Like a Zelig man, I tell you, it's everybody. They're all here.
Well, again, I guess I had so many irons and so many fires.
Mm.
I'm old dear friends with Tom Savini.
Oh wow, okay.
We go way back. My brother wrote a book. Well, he wrote a short story called Blood Scent,
Hmm.
which we published at Kimiko. It was one of the first books that I co-edited with Michael Urey, I believe. Um, and I'm trying to remember now, where was I?
Oh, working
Blood.
with
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. So I had Savini write the introduction and put it on the front cover. Introduction by Tom Savini, and it was a really kind of creepy uh, vampire story with Gene Colan pencils.
Oh wow, cool. Very cool.
Trying to remember his name. Is it
Hmm.
Steve Oliff? Yeah, Steve Oliff was the colorist, and it is, I mean, one of my proudest moments. It's such a great book, and we also had a back story by Bernie Miro that he drew and basically illustrated one of my brother's poems. So, having known Tom since the late 70s or early 80s, got to meet George, hang out. This is an amazing guy. Da, 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 da.
Wow.
My friend Michael Rougeau, Larry's little brother. Now Michael's old enough to be playing in the game, and he hooks me up again with George. And I say, George, let's do this. And then, of course, I had to have Bernie Wrightson do the covers.
Mm.
So, unfortunately, the script that George turned in, I sent him scripts, and he just sent me his raw script.
Mm.
And every 3 words had ellipses, and then 3 more words and ellipses.
Oh, really?
And then 3. It's like in one balloon there were 5 pauses. It's like, oh, this is not going to work. And quite honestly, I was so fried and so frustrated with that book that I literally handed it to this guy, Tommy Castillo, and said, can you just draw this and then we'll put in the words later.
Mm-hmm.
And he did a great job making it all happen. And I know he was frustrated to no end by the end of it, but yeah, the book didn't come out the way. I mean, aside from the covers, wow, Bernie did a great job. But now now that we move ahead years later, The Walking Dead, oddly enough, the first episode, or maybe one of the early episodes, my buddy Shannon Stewart, who I brought up earlier, he's the first zombie to get shot in the head.
Oh, really? Well, that's cool.
Yeah, because we knew, again, the names are flailing out of my brain. Greg Nicotero.
Yes, yeah.
We knew Greg through Tom, so the next Shannon's like, hey, let's go do this. We're actually at a San Diego Con thingy, and we had better seats than Greg did. And Shannon had to rub it into his face. It's like, hey man, remember the first time I met you? I was in front of you at San Diego.
That's wild.
So yeah, that was a fun run, but it could have ended better.
Yeah, well, I mean, beyond that, I've seen worked on many other books with others too. But I did want to just touch a little bit before I let you go on the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund, which I know that. Are you still doing Deputy Director?
Oh no, I haven't been. I was only there for about 3 or 4 months.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. I wasn't sure. It is obviously in the States right now, and I mean, to a lesser extent here, but it's still happening here. Defense of censorship and all those things that suck when it comes to people that don't understand art. It's such a big conversation, and I know that the Legal Defense Fund does amazing work in defending that. So,
yes, absolutely. It's just I wasn't. One of the first things I said to Charles Brownstein was, "Me do words, me no do numbers."
Yeah,
and he didn't hear it. He just didn't hear it. He goes, "Okay, here's your budget." He's like, "Me do words, me don't do numbers." So it just wasn't the right fit, and I got out of there as quick as I could, and that was my last gig in the world. I am now fully retired and enjoying myself, just kind of hanging out and reading books and watching movies and playing with the dog, who just will not stop barking out there.
It's all right. It's all right. Well, yeah, I mean, just reading, I'm sure you're familiar with this, but there's a lot of really lovely sentiment online about your work throughout the years from other creators you've worked with, many of which credit you for being a very sort of innovative editor and helping inspire people and get the projects done. So,
that's very sweet here. I appreciate it. But like I said, if I wasn't born in Long Island in 1955, if my house didn't burn down, all these things. They're just like, okay, throw another one at me.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of people that would have a similar story that didn't do what you did. So I think it's a testament to you as a artistic voice,
Yeah,
and I think there's not enough attention because I've talked to Mike on the show too, Mike Carlin, and
right.
other folks, and I think editing, like, people don't understand how important it is because, like, artistic people are mostly pretty flaky, hard to nail down. Many of the stories you've told are about just trying to get them organized enough to get projects done and all that sort of stuff. So the fact that
Yeah,
it takes a really steady hand to shepherd that sort of stuff along. So
I could tell one more Paul Pope
please do,
story.
please do.
He hates that I tell this.
Excellent, even better.
Well,
Maybe it'll tempt him to come on the show so I can get him to do a
I'll, I'll
repeal.
I'll let him know about you. Don't worry about it.
Please do.
Uh, so I gave him his first paid gig, and I got a monthly book called Dark Horse Presents, and we're doing 8-page installments monthly. And his assistant, which is his girlfriend at the time, was my rat. She was really good. She would always rat him out and tell me what's going on.
Perfect.
Then suddenly she's gone. And he's not answering my calls. Now, I had known that he had let it drop that his mother was a doctor who worked at, and I forget the name of the hospital, but she worked at a certain hospital near him in Columbus, Ohio, or somewhere like that. And I was about to ship late. I was right up on it, and it was getting ugly. So I decided to call her, because I also know he was about to get money from her to start his own little private industry, his own private little publishing outfit. So I called her and I said, Mrs. Pope, I don't mean to be rude, but I know you're considering financing what Paul is hoping to do, but I have a boss and I have a monthly book and he won't answer my calls. And that doesn't, I wouldn't, if I were you, start throwing money his way until he gets serious about this. He's going to get me fired. She's very polite. She's very nice. And about, 20 minutes later, I get a phone call. Dude, don't ever call my mother again. Dude, don't ever not return my phone calls again. And that was the end of that.
That's awesome. Oh man, what a great story. Holy crap. They called his mom, even better.
I had to do it.
Well, that's why you're a good editor. Oh, well, thank you so much, Bob. This was a real honor, and I really appreciate being on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. And peace out.
Peace out. Thanks again. There you have it, my conversation with Bob Schreck, the indelible Bob Schreck. Great conversation, great chat, many, many stories. Man, what a memory. Like, I can just rattle off names, events. Had such a hand in such, influential comic stories, not just on the industry itself, but on the readers like me. Deeply love that chat, and that man does some amazing work, and I can't thank him enough for being on the show. Bob has mentioned he's retired, but I think the mark he's left in comics is something is very hard to surpass. So thanks, Bob, and thank you for listening. Tune in next week for another episode of the show in which we talk with another comic industry person. Not quite sure who that is yet. I've got some stuff lined up, but like I said, I never like to announce it unless it's already recorded. So tune in 1 week's time for that. In the meantime, stay safe, have fun, watch a horror movie or two, read a horror comic or two, read a horror book or two, and keep keeping on. This program is a proud part of the Swear to Pod Network.